We start with Liverpool with their title defence already on the ropes following a really bad run of form. It was Brentford at the weekend that they lost to, and Arne Slot admitted he's got no answers with their inability to deal with long balls and set pieces. So have they become too soft? Well, after that defeat to Brentford, it left them 7th in the table behind Manchester United. More importantly, 7 points off leaders Arsenal. Jamie Carragher was asked whether Liverpool have enough physicality in their squad. This was his response.
I don't think they got enough of it, and losing 4 league games in a row for Brentford would be a disaster. For any promoted team, you'd be looking at each other and think we can't lose 4 on the bounce. To see the champions lose 4 games in a row in the Premier League with the expenditure in the summer, I think we're in crisis time for Liverpool right now, in terms of, there'll be a lot of serious questions getting asked in the dressing room, the manager and the coaching staff, and also the people above the manager and the players as well. When they look at what they've actually spent, the players they've gone out and get, they'll be expecting a lot more.
Right, Charlie Austin, welcome along. Saturday night, was that the worst performance under Arne Slot?
I think so. I think the worrying signs is there's no signs of improvement. Lost 1 game, okay, then the next one, and then Saturday just was the icing on the cake. 4 Premier League games on the spin of not winning. It's worrying times.
Arne Slot said he doesn't have an answer for dealing with long balls and set pieces. He said that after the game. How much of a concern is that?
That's football. That's part and parcel of football. Long balls and set pieces. So it's not all going to be passing 5 yards out from the back and going through robotic stuff. It's got to change it up, and I think you've got to adapt to that situation. It's all right saying, we can't deal with that kind of situation in games. Well, you're going to have to fast. The centre halves, Virgil van Dijk and Kanate at the back, they've grown up heading balls, control long balls up to them to deal with.
Can you think of 2 better suited centre backs to deal with long balls into the box? That'd just be easier for them than trying to play through them. Would surely be harder to defend than a long ball into the box.
Of course, but that goes with football now. Nothing's changed. The ball come in the box, you've got to defend the area. I think the worrying side is not only is the first ball, but it's the second ball. You see that with Brentford's first goal. Yeah, they lose the first header, and then Kirkers at the back post gets done, and listens a goal, and one down straight away from another set piece.
Slot keeps talking about their weaknesses in his news conferences, which, okay, I quite like the honesty there, but can that filter into the dressing room? Can the players start actually believing that, we can't deal with these? And it gets into their heads.
I think it's almost like he's saying that in his press conference, but he's definitely relaying that back to them, because they're going to pick up on that. And they'll know themselves. These are top quality professionals. They know that they're in a predicament at the moment where anything that's coming into our box from a set piece or from a long ball, long delivery, whatever you want to call it, we're struggling with it.
Andy Robertson said, some quotes here after the game, he said they were yards off it. And if you think you're going to show up and all of a sudden they're going to drop off, it never, ever happens. So how much of a slump is this slump, down to the players? Because that's...
Off his comments, he's saying there's an arrogance within the dressing room there. If certain people think that's what's going to happen, you're just going to turn up and be able to play and win games. Brentford's a tough place to go. Every game in the Premier League is tough. At the moment, Liverpool are just underperforming constantly, and we don't see any signs of improvement together. I see Dominic Szoboszlai playing at right back, and I just think you need to just put him back in the midfield. But Arne Slot's the manager. He's the one who's making these decisions, and ultimately, it does stop at the manager. And it comes down to players not performing and doing certain things on the pitch, of course. However, he's the one who picks the team.
So is it a crisis?
The Premier League champions, defending Premier League champions, have lost 4 games in a row. Of course. I don't see how you can be like, well, no, they're going to overturn it. We've not seen anything to show that Liverpool are going to overturn it. 125 million for Alexander Isak, but over 100 million for Florian Wirtz. Lost Trent, yet fine. Kirk has come in for 50 million. They're just, no one's actually performing to their ability, and that's also not just on the signings. Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk are not hitting the heights that they have and we've seen over recent years.
We're going to speak to a Liverpool fan in a moment. I just want to show you the poll at the moment. It's will Liverpool retain the Premier League title? We're not saying can, we're saying will Liverpool retain the Premier League title? That's our poll at the moment, and 90% of people are saying no. All right, so only 10% of the viewers are saying that Liverpool will still win the Premier League from here. And I know, because we asked you this at the start, Charlie, that you agree.
Yeah, of course. They've lost 4 games in a row. They're 7 points behind Arsenal now. And Arsenal are the only ones consistent at the moment. They're doing what Liverpool did last year. consistent, winning, not playing great, but winning games of football. And the others are just dropping off. But on Liverpool, 4 games on the spin in the Premier League, it's a dire situation at the moment, and that's it. And I'd like to know, I think it's down to 7%. Is that 7% on there now, Tom?
93's now saying no.
I've not seen enough from Liverpool from the start of the season to say they're going to be in the title race and go and win the leagues, let alone after these 4 games. Because these 4 games that's going on, they have been poor and not even deserved to win.
Right, OK, well, let's get more on this now. We're joined by Dan Morgan from the Anfield Wrap. First question, Dan, well, good morning, first of all, but do you still believe?
It's October, but 7 points is 7 points at the top of the Premier League. Arsenal are phenomenal. So likelihoods not with Liverpool, but the most important thing is Liverpool need to get their own house in order. They've got to get back to winning games of football themselves. They can't be looking at title races and looking at other teams dropping points whilst they're losing games in the manner that they are. So they're going to have to get back to winning games and quickly.
Dan, like, at the moment, over them 4 games, like, there's no. As I'm watching the 4 games and where they've been beat, I've not seen anything that is going to change anytime soon. I think that's the worrying side of it also.
Look, Charlie, they won 5-1 midweek in the Champions League. You know, they weren't.
But that was against Frankfurt, wasn't it? That are basically just open. And when a team's open against Liverpool, no, but it's true. As much as Liverpool were good in the Champions League, Frankfurt were open, and then listen, Liverpool were really good. But the Premier League's a different kettle of fish to what the Champions League is.
You can say Frankfurt were open. I can say Liverpool clicked. It's apples and oranges. So it's one of these things where, you know, I think Liverpool have bought in the summer with attacking players in mind, with being more expansive and creative against low blocks in mind. But I completely agree with your point on the fact that they are conceding goals in a manner which is not befitting of a top Premier League side, going the other way. You know, I think I read something the other day that in 5 of the last 6 games, the opposition have scored from one of their first 2 chances against Liverpool, and it's been really hard to watch because, you know, the last 2 league games, they're behind from the first minute against Manchester United, the 4th minute against Brentford, and when they're getting back into those games, they're not doing well either. They're not taking that momentum and seizing it. So it's really, really difficult at the moment. And yeah, like I say, they've got to get their own house in order.
And when you concede, though, and when you concede after a minute and you concede again after 4 minutes, you're going to face a low block. Liverpool are, at the start, I said they were favourites, whatever it is, title contest, all that kind of stuff. But when you concede that early, you are going to face a low block, aren't you? Because no one's going to be, right, we're going to go and try and get the second. They're going to try and hold back. And then you've got to show the quality that the players you brought in, like you said, the attacking-minded players, to break down that low block. And at the moment, it just don't seem like it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, totally. Look, and I think the other thing to mention there is there's quality all over the Premier League. Like, you look at Brentford's second goal yesterday on Saturday, the pass from Damsgaard that just opens up the defence. So teams can counter-attack well. They can now obviously use set pieces really well. You know, there's this argument about football being a bit more attritional and stuff, but you've got to deal with that. You know, you've got to deal with every different type of challenge, and they're not doing so, like Andy Robertson said. So it's a lot of it's basics, a lot of it's just winning battles and duels over the pitch, a lot of it's stopping things before they get to a certain point, but they're not doing it right now.
That formation that you played against Frankfurt, I know that because Isak was out at the weekend, that you probably couldn't do that, but would you like to see it happen you do that in the Premier League, where it's a case of, OK, we are going to be more open, but we're just going to score more goals than the opposition?
Yeah, if that's what it's going to take for the time being, then yeah, absolutely I would. I think, you know, it's a case that when they're all fit, he does have more options there, Arne Slot. You know, I think in that game we've seen both Ekitike and Isak play together. Ekitike a little bit more off the left, and then, you know, you can say there, well, is it a little bit more 4-4-2, whatever it might be. You know, formations in football now, they can change throughout the game. There can be a number of different ones, and that's fine. But Liverpool have got to find a solution for the short term, and if that is just outscoring your opponent, then no problem at all with that. But you know, they can't keep giving head starts away in terms of leads and stuff like that. They've got to find a little bit more resolve, but they've also got to find ways of just basics, like getting the scoreboard on your side a little bit more in games. You know, you'll see when you're not playing from a position of fighting against a lead, then, you know, you can see in that Frankfurt game where the pitch becomes a little bit more open because they have to come forward, they have to try and find a goal. You can see the likes of Florian Wirtz there finding space, but we've seen the same sort of games they play out all the time, and I understand the frustration of a lot of fans. It is really, really frustrating to watch at the moment.
What do you think of the mentality of the players at the moment? Because I think it was Jurgen Klopp used to call you mentality monsters, didn't he? Has that changed?
It's a brand new squad almost, and there's a lot of players there who weren't there last year, and there's a lot of integration. So collectively, they're still getting to know each other.
But you started well, though. But you did start by winning every game, even though you had those new players.
Yeah, but you know, we've been on the end of a few last-minute ones recently. We were the ones on the receiving side of that. You know, we were benefiting from that in the first few games of the season. It wasn't that it was all plain sailing. We were brushing side to side. You know, we look at that Newcastle game, Burnley, for example. They were games where it was going to the well, and we were getting to be on the positive end of those last-minute winners. So it wasn't fully clicking. But you know, I think they've just got to try and look at clicking in ways they can get to know each other's game, but just get confidence up somehow, and you only get confidence from winning games. They're going to have to try and get those games in.
I just don't see that at the moment, though, Dan. Like, when you watch it, you don't know where that's going to come and where that changes. So when you go on it, it's like you need that turning point, a little bit of luck. The keeper to make a good save, defence to make a block, or Isak to score a pivotal time. Do you know what I mean? But at the moment, them 4 games, take out the Champions League one, them 4 games, I don't see that kind of happening at the moment in the Premier League. Hopefully it does sooner rather than later, of course.
It can happen. You know, teams can just flick a switch. Look at PSG this time last year compared to what they go on to do at the back end of the season. You know, they're night and day from the side that they were to autumn. So it can happen. And yeah, there's probably a little bit more hope at the moment with Liverpool fans. But what I'd also say is, and look, it's like talking about referees. No one wants to talk about this. The fixtures haven't been great in terms of we've played 5 of the last 6 away. It's not ideal. You know, we've had 2 sets of 3 games in 7 days with travel involved. You look at it now, you know, I think the furthest we have to go is City from now until Christmas. We've got a run of home games coming up. After the next international break, the fixtures sort of break for us. It's a lot more bottom half sides, promoted sides.
Yeah,
so that can be
Forest,
where that
West
can work.
Ham, Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, fair enough, Tottenham away, Wolves and Leeds at home ends off your December, and then you start January with Fulham away.
There's your low block, though. There's your low block, though, Dan, isn't it? When you say with the bottom half teams, etc., what do you expect to face? A low block?
Yeah, but I think that's what they've bought for, Charlie. I think that's what the manager's prepared for. He's talking all of last season about games being too tight, 2-1s, 1-0s, 3-2s. You know, I think he wanted more daylight between games. So if a team is just going to come and sit in a 5-4-1, say that's what they're bought for. That's what they're prepared for. Now, listen, those teams will still come with long throw players, and they'll still flood the box, and they'll still play for set pieces, and you've got to be able to deal with them. And I think that's where, you know, you can have a question about why we're not doing that, and we've got to get to grips with that soon. Dan, I think we'll see a bit more in those games.
There was a message on the bottom of the screen. It's just gone now. It was very strong, actually, suggesting that Arne Slot is not the man to take Liverpool forward. I assume whoever sent that in is in the minority.
Yeah, but you know, I can't speak for every other Liverpool fan, but for me, let's not lose sight of how difficult it is to win a Premier League title. You know, let's not do that. And he gets Liverpool to the league and to a domestic final in his first season. This is not as reductive as saying things like that was Jurgen Klopp's squad, or he's done it by fluke, or no one else was playing.